It's time for Inside the Gamecocks, the show with Phil Mullinax and J.C. Sherbert.
So, how many of you would say you speak English fairly well, but with some difficulty?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You play to win the game.
Now, let's take it away, J.C. and Phil.
Monday, everyone. It's been good to be back. A game week again, Inside the Gamecocks, the show. I'm J.C. Sherbert. This is Phil Mullinax, trusty sidekick, co-host, producer extraordinaire. That's local radio in Columbia. That's I think Phil Kornblut started that, producer extraordinaire. And I think we continue to call people that. But we're certainly glad that you joined us today on a Monday. Game week again, Carolina, Texas A&M. Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff Eastern time. SEC Network will do the television. Big game, obviously, for a lot of reasons for South Carolina. Heading out of the bye week with a 4-2 record and a big win at Kentucky. And Phil, Carolina did not play, but what a weekend of football we just watched.
I mean, my goodness, yeah, it was incredible. Lots of good games. I'm kind of glad we didn't play. That way we got to keep up and watch it all.
Yeah, lots of storming of the field. The game in Knoxville obviously took center stage. 52-49 Tennessee. All right, so I'm taking back, I think I've been wrong about Heupel in Tennessee. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Yeah, we're just going to own that one now.
Man, and Hooker is playing so well for them. He's such an accurate passer. They get vertical. Jalen Hyatt, who I know Gamecock fans are, sending Brian McClendon thank you letters for not offering him. Huge day. They did all this without Cedric Tillman, missing several starters on defense. I thought their defense did just enough early on, Phil, to build that big lead. And this is kind of what they do. Teams, I had to question, forgive me for doing this. I had to question Nick Saban a little bit for the plan. It seemed like they came out and were just trying to fire it all over the field with Bryce Young instead of kind of lining up and running the ball and trying to work time off the clock and keep their offense off the field. I guess when you're Alabama, you think, well, our defense is good enough, they should stop them, but they just couldn't all day. And boy, Tennessee doesn't dink and dunk you, man. They go right down the field. I mean, it's vertical.
Yeah, it is straight, deep vertical shots, and they're wide open back there.
It's unreal. I mean, it's unreal. And he puts the ball right on the money. I mean, he may be the most accurate. And he was accurate at Virginia Tech, too. And this is another reason I don't understand. I guess Justin Fuente doesn't have a job now for a reason. I mean, you run that guy off to replace him with Burmeister, who wasn't very good. You see what happens there. It's crazy. I'm convinced Hooker, through a period in his career, Phil, did not practice very well. This is my theory on that because he got beat out at Virginia Tech, right? And then he did not win the job at Tennessee to begin with. Joe Milton did. Yeah. And Joe Milton was horrible. In games, and Milton gets hurt, and so Hooker has to come in, and the rest is history. But congrats to all
like that. Yeah, they just gamers.
Yeah, gamers. So congrats to my Vol friends out there and the Vol Nation. Been a long time coming. 16 years since they've beaten Tennessee. I mean, since they beaten Alabama, and they did it in one of the better games I think we're going to see. Clemson, Florida State was a bit disappointing. It was kind of Florida State made a run there at the end, and Clemson really took control in the second half or in the first half or third quarter or whatever. But FSU gave them a game 34-28. Tigers won that one. Auburn Ole Miss was a surprisingly good football game. Auburn found its offense a little bit, I think. And then for those of you that, are looking for some good news for the Gamecocks, I guess, it's transitive property, so it doesn't matter. Kentucky's defense, wow, lights out against Mississippi State.
They played great.
MSU only had 203 total yards. Wildcats win 27-17. Chris Rodriguez went off 196 yards against them. Of course, Will Levis was back, and Kentucky looked like its normal self in that football game. They got Mississippi State caught in the spider web. so to speak, and lots of penalties, but hey, spider web teams sometimes rely on things like that. I think the Gamecocks to a certain extent could be a spider web team at times. I was putting up some video of Chris Phillips' interview with us last week from the Spurs Up show, and he talked about how the game at Kentucky kind of reminded you of the Spurrier era, where the D-line just sort of took over on the road and did whatnot. So that was a heck of a weekend of college football. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The poll question today, I got this from putting up some video clips as well. Juice Wells, over under for catches in the game against A&M. I got it at 4.5. So, so far on the Big Spur, I think 70% says over. So far on Twitter, I think the numbers are about the same. And there are games he's done that. I mean, he has, I think, 2 7-catch games and a 8-catch game. And then, some games like Kentucky, it's 3 for 66 or whatever. But I think Juice is going to be very important on Saturday night. And it may be that I just watched Jalen Hyatt go off, and so I'm like, speed, vertical, take advantage of your speed on vertical passes or whatever. But that's that was just kind of the opening poll question for the week. We got David Cloninger coming in from the Charleston Post Courier at 11:30 coming up. It's gonna kind of get topical because he wrote a really good article about Mike Grosso, and those of you, I'm old enough to remember, Phil, my dad used to talk about Carolina getting out of the ACC. And Carolina was a basketball powerhouse, an emerging basketball powerhouse, if you will. A lot of jealousy around the league about Frank McGuire, and what he was doing with that program. And this situation, mandated by Duke and North Carolina and the powers that be in the ACC at the time. And I say at the time because those schools have kind of run that league for a long time. I think it holds them back now. But I think at the time, that league was kind of run by Duke and UNC, and then Wake and NC State sort of followed along. They were not happy with South Carolina being a basketball powerhouse, and they put up a lot of roadblocks. And David's going to kind of get into all that with us. Plus, we'll get his take on the first half of the football season. Always a good segment. I think we had a good segment with him the first time we had him on, and I've just been neglectful in getting him back on. He's always funny and has a good take on things, and has been around this program, all the athletics programs at Carolina for years. Keith Allsep coming up at noon with his normal Monday breakdown. So we'll get his take on some of the games he watched this weekend, plus look ahead to Texas A&M with Keith. The Nana Sports chat box, as always. We love to get to it, Phil.
Yes,
right
sir.
Here, right away. Krager says, what a weekend of football. Turns out the Kentucky defense is pretty damn good.
Yeah, they showed out. And, of course, Mississippi State let Rodriguez run all over them, which is like the exact way you don't want that game to go.
Yeah, if you're Mississippi State, your idea is, hey, we need to, score on offense, go up and down the field, and then keep Rodriguez from beating us. Neither one of those things happened for the Pirates on Saturday night. Poor guy. So
rough go.
That was a rough go of it for Leach and those guys. But certainly, another game that was off the radar that normally is not. It's normally like a CBS game. Florida and LSU. LSU got up off the mat, and beat the Gators 45-35. I think this Florida team is average as grits. They just aren't, and somebody pointed this out to me because I was like, well, Napier with his offense and sort of the run dynamic of it, they may want to win games 13-10. They're like, JC, they don't have the defense to win games 13-10. And as the season has gone along, I think that's kind of been proven. Florida's defense is susceptible. Daniels, the quarterback for LSU, the transfer from Arizona State, I think it is his best game. And the Bayou Bengals, after taking that whipping to Tennessee, they come back and beat the Gators. So they had their SEC East buffet 2 weeks in a row. And I don't know 2 years ago if anybody's sitting there going, yeah, they'll get slaughtered at home against Tennessee, and they beat Florida on the road by 10.
Or they just let them get too far out ahead and they can't catch up. I mean, that's the way it is. It's like, it's exactly what you said. They're just not built to do it like that, and their defense isn't good to play like that.
Yeah, for the Gators, absolutely. All right, Nana Sports chat box rolls on. Clint, the UT-Bama game was fantastic. Southern Cal-Utah game was classic as well. It was. Utes win on a 2-point conversion, 43-42. So after Mike and I and Michael on the JC Morgan podcast last week talked about how the Los Angeles schools are on a collision course and how the Trojans could end up making the playoffs. Boy, they may not. Now, there's no divisions in the Pac-12 anymore. I didn't realize that till last week.
Oh, wow.
So the Trojans could still get back in. It's a 1-point loss. You got to. It kind of just depends on everything. And the talk now is, what if Tennessee loses to Georgia, but wins out and goes 11-1 with a win over Bama, and then Georgia goes to the SEC championship game and loses to Bama? Do all three get in?
What if you have a one-loss Ole Miss in the conversation too?
Yeah, because Ole Miss hasn't lost yet. People have to realize they have not lost.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's weird to think about. What an interesting year it could turn out to be.
Yeah, no doubt, Phil. So that's an interesting quandary right now. People are talking about is will Tennessee, will all three of those teams end up in the playoff? Look. I mean, well, what if? I think it depends on who else is undefeated. Like if Clemson is undefeated, I think, and Ohio State obviously, if they're undefeated, they're going to get in.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they'll just have to flip a coin. What they'll probably end up doing is they'll probably screw Tennessee, because if they lose to Georgia and don't win the division, then they haven't won anything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They haven't won a division. They haven't won a conference title. So that's unfortunate, but I think that's probably, what the situation will be if that happens. And we have, but hey, Clemson's 11-1, 12-1. Ohio State loses a game between now and then. I mean, all bets are off, in my opinion. I think that could happen if you're comparing one-loss teams. But the committee has shown over the years, Phil, that they really like undefeated teams.
Yeah, but nobody.
Like Notre Dame got in a few years back and beat nobody.
Right. Yeah.
They beat a lot of name teams, like they beat Florida State, they beat Virginia Tech on the road, and they beat Southern Cal. But all those teams were like 6-6, 5-7.
Right.
They had one big win. It was at Michigan to open the year, and it was like, wow. Brian says, "Morning, fellas. Great day to be alive and be a Gamecock." Amen.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Eco Priest, finally get to watch live. I usually have to catch up at night. Good morning. Good to see y'all. Good morning. Yeah. Welcome into the Nana's Porch chat box.
Welcome in.
Good morning, y'all. Give it to him, Todd Ellis.
Give it to him.
Clint says, not sure how the helmet to face mask hit on Bryce Young wasn't targeting. And Gene Steratore is a total shill. He never says the refs miss a call. Clint says Hyatt was too skinny, JC. Yeah. And you know what? Here's, sometimes when you're in this business, you sort of listen to people, and you kind of, at times, you're better off if you just go with your gut. At cornerback and at receiver, I've never been one that wants to sacrifice speed over size, because I've seen so many. Now, look, you could say, well, Jam Williams was too small to play. Well, I think we figured that out after a couple of years. He was freshman all SEC the first time out. He just couldn't stay healthy, taking the pounding back there. But I'm talking like you can't recruit 6'1" corners that can't run over a 5'11" guy that can, or even 5'9.5", 5'10". There's speed is the name of the game. I feel the same way at receiver. I think that, you do need size, because you got to block and stuff. Well, we see sort of how important perimeter blocking is. If you missed Friday's show, go back and listen to Wando talk about it. You do need that. But I think when you look at Hyatt's speed, and he's gotten better and bigger and stronger, you can always get a guy bigger. You could not get a guy very much faster. You can get him somewhat faster. You can get him playing faster. in a game, like at linebacker. Everybody talks about, this linebacker's slow. Well, this linebacker's just not comfortable, because he runs 4.45. He just looks slow. So that's the deal there with that. Tennessee's raised, Jared says, $34,000 to replace the goalpost so far. Jaffaler says, morning, fellas. Boy, the hate for Tennessee is real, huh, gents? Yeah. They're back.
Yeah, good win for them, but bad news for everybody else.
Yeah. Always look forward to Monday. Go Cox and Semper Fi.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your service.
Stadium's going to be rocking Saturday night. No reason we can't have it just as lit as Tennessee did. Amen.
Yeah.
I think it will be. I think I would expect, and this is a gut feeling, it's not, I don't have any inside information on this, but I would expect that they'll announce a sellout here this week, for the game. By the way, I auctioned off some lodge box seats for Carolina Rise over the weekend. Thank you. If any of you out there listening and you bid on it, thank you so much. I appreciate it. The winning bid surpassed my expectations, so that's good. And of course, all that money goes right back into Carolina Rise to help fund NIL deals for student athletes. So that's good. But the interest in that was larger than I felt it would be. So that means a lot of people are looking for tickets. A lot of people going to the game. Everybody I've talked to, like my crew that I went to Lexington with, they're all excited. I mean, they're fired up. The word massive tailgate came across my text over the weekend. Lance Player, what's up, killers? How are we doing today? So I can't wait to have a moment like Saturday night. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Clint says Mississippi State continues to face plant when the expectations are high.
It is. If they didn't play on TV, they'd be undefeated.
They didn't play on TV. Clint says he goes on Juice Wells, the poll question. He goes over 4.5 catches with 5 against the Aggies. Okay. Josh says, good morning, guys. First show I've gotten to listen to live. Love the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Cox, and hoping to finally see our offense come together and play a complete game. Calling for Rattler to go over 300 yards.
Love to see it. Be about time.
I'm trying to. Mississippi State had success throwing it all over them, but not a lot of other teams have. Alabama couldn't really throw it on them, but they had their backup quarterback and all that. So we'll see. 76 Gamecock says excellent article on Grosso and hoops, the whole ACC fiasco. Yeah, we're going to talk to David about that here in about 12 minutes. Easy E offensive stats against Kentucky. Carolina was just as good or better than Napier, Kiffin, and Leach. Just saying. That's true. I mean, second half, too. I think Carolina only had 90 yards at halftime. So how many is that second half? 260-something in the second half?
I mean, we are a second half football team.
Yeah, Beamer. I wrote about that last week on the Big Spur. Beamer's right. I mean, you look at every game this year, with the exception of Georgia, which was just a domination from start to finish, and the second half has been better. Even South Carolina State, Carolina's up 22-0. They win 50-10. There were some defensive breakdowns in the second half, but the offense played much better. So especially offensively, I think that's true. The problem is if A&M's clicking on all cylinders like they're capable of, and I use that phrase a lot, play like you're capable of, if you don't start well, they could have you in a hole and take the crowd out of the game pretty quick. Yeah, especially if they're running back a cane. Is it pronounced a cane? A chain. Yeah. A chain. That's a heck of a name. A chain. If you can't stop A chain, going to be a bad deal. Lance says we need to rush the field moment soon. It would be wonderful for that to happen November 19th when Tennessee comes to town. Clint said, or Will says, just make Anthony Richardson throw the ball. Yeah, and sometimes he's good at it, and sometimes he's not. So that's Queasy says, am I wrong to think that the Gamecocks match up better against Tennessee than Alabama? I don't know. Somebody now that it's, and I think so, not lack of respect, but some of the teams, LSU and Bama, the last couple of weeks especially, they've kind of taken let's play with fire approach with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to keep them off the field. I mean, and you have to do it with your offense. And you can't let them, you know, get up big early because they're a momentum team. And sure enough, you know, you're sitting there and Tennessee's up 28-10 in the second quarter. They scored 21 points in the first quarter. I mean, you let them start well, you're done. And LSU and Bama both the last 2 weeks have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And I don't think Saban helped himself out any at the end of the game either, going into that final field goal attempt. I mean, 3 straight passes. I'm like, why not try to run it? I think they had 2 timeouts.
I would have run it and taken my chances in overtime.
Yeah,
I would. You know, I mean, and then you never know because Gibbs was getting lathered up. I mean, heck, Gibbs may break one. So, you know, Craig says, I sent JC a tweet saying that Muschamp recruited Caldwell, Wyman, and Rico Powers, but Hyatt wasn't good enough. Unreal. Yeah, I don't know. Saunders throwing this out there. Anyone have suggestions for a tailgating spot? First game back for a tailgate since 2018. Not sure with the fair being in town that our regular spot will be available. Yeah, Shop and Key Road probably be where I would go. So, Quantrell says, man, I don't know. Watching the Florida State Clemson game, I'm surprised to see how well FSU ran the ball. They averaged 6.1 yards per carry. Maybe something Carolina can replicate. Yeah, they're still down 34-14. I know they didn't, you know, they made some mistakes and stuff like that, and they could not stop Clemson's run. But I don't think FSU is a defensive juggernaut this year by any stretch. But, you know, the Clemson defense has been an interesting case study this year, Phil. I mean, I don't think they've been as dominant as people have thought. They've had dominant moments, but they haven't been, you know, quite what I expected them to be. Now, on the flip side, I think their offense is playing better than I expected it to be. They're balanced. They run the ball. DJ is sort of playing within himself this year, you know, not trying to do too much. He's in better shape. He can run it better. So RB says, is there any chance we get the second half offense versus Kentucky to show up from the get-go? I hope so. I mean, we talked about this just in the second half against Kentucky. The tempo was much better. Not that they went fast tempo, but they were getting lined up and playing more with a purpose. It was very, very lethargic first half. And live, it's even more noticeable because you're not, you know, you don't have TV cutting to this shot and that shot. You're literally just sitting there watching guys running. I mean, it was tough, but they got better. You know, Queasy says he'll be at the Texas A&M game. The last game he went to was the Auburn game in 2020 or last year, 2021.
Yeah.
Two straight home wins against Auburn. Yeah, so there could be a win. I actually am leaning towards that score for my prediction, 21-17. It's just a lean. It's a lean right now.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah. Clint says have to start getting the ball vertically in the passing game to keep these kids interested. Yeah, and those of you that don't know what he's referencing, Mazio Bennett, the 2024 kid from Greenville High, did go ahead and commit to Tennessee. So, you know, and the reason stated was the offense. And if you're a receiver, Tennessee offense looks like a lot of fun. and the other thing about it is, and I don't want to talk about Tennessee too much today, but the other impressive thing about it is, you know, you have two guys, you know, they're doing this without Tillman, their top receiver. And you have two guys in Keaton and Brew McCoy. Like Keaton was a high 4-star guy out of Marietta. They were real high on. I think Pruitt got him. Hadn't done jack. Hadn't done diddly poo. And Tillman gets hurt, so he has to play. And all of a sudden, he's killing it. And Brew McCoy, if you'd have asked me what's one guy out there that's a 5-star that's going to bust completely and never do anything, it would have been Brew McCoy, simply because of like the crazy transfers that he did and stuff. And I never really thought he was all that good to begin with. I mean, he was good, but he was somebody that needed to work. Well, now you plug him into that system, and he's killing it. I mean, Brew McCoy's living up to the potential. So there you go. Lance says the only way we match up against Tennessee is Lloyd going off. Saunders says he'd like to see more shots on first down if we're on their side of the field, start attacking the end zone. You know, That's the thing there. RB says, any truth to Jimbo Fisher's job being in jeopardy? The buyout's like $80 million. We have Jeff Tarpley coming on from is it A&M Aggies 24/7, something like that?
Ags 24/7.
Ags 24/7 on Thursday or Wednesday. I'm sorry,
Wednesday. Yeah, right.
Wednesday at the top of the show. So Tarp will talk about all that. You just brought in, and this is the problem these days. I think sometimes with recruiting hype, the media I think falls for it. People should know better. You looked at A&M this year; they had a lot of personnel losses from last season, right? A lot of personnel losses. You didn't really know what the situation was going to be at quarterback because you got Max Johnson, but then Haynes King only started one game last year. Then you got a 5-star coming in. And I think people just assumed, we're going to add this historically great recruiting class to their roster, and they're going to be a top 10 team. Well, that doesn't always happen. I mean, these guys are still young freshmen, and in college football like this year, there's a lot of older dudes because of the COVID year and stuff, a lot of 6-year guys. And you're talking about 23-year-old men versus 18-year-old men, young men. I mean, that's the thing there. Craig says Aggies are going to sell out to stop Lloyd. This needs to be the game Rattler breaks out. Good. Bama had the punt miscue. Yeah, Bama just did not play well.
They weren't play well. Poor execution, penalties. It was just it was ugly.
Daddy O says after 7 weeks of watching college football, one thing I know for sure is anything's possible on any given Saturday. Nobody's safe.
Nope. That's the beauty of this game. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And Sonder, and I'll answer this, then we'll go to break and get David in here. Why was Hyatt passed over by Muschamp and McClendon? Was it a size frame thing that, and Clemson was never interested? Well, Clemson, look at how they recruit receivers, though. I mean, I don't necessarily fault those guys. South Carolina ended up in a situation where there was an entire season where they really had one receiving threat, Shi Smith. And then last year they had, 2? Most games?
Yeah.
Josh Van and ...
Mm-hmm.
So all that good stuff. So that's the thing there. J-Rock says if we don't change our offense, we're going to miss out on a lot of recruits, especially in-state guys we need to keep at home. Keeping these guys in SC is a big key to being the team we want to be. And you make an excellent point, especially at wide receiver, J-Rock, because this state produces D linemen and wide receivers just about every year. So there's no reason to not be good at those two positions. And that's another reason, like the whole pro-style offense thing baffles me a bit because, you want to run the ball. Everybody does. But, if you kind of look at where you're recruiting from, there's always some really good receivers. In South Carolina, they may not be rated that high, but they're pretty good. So, that's the thing there. All right. Gonna jump off, get to David Cloninger coming up on the other side. He's going to have a history lesson for all of us, and we'll get his take on the first half of the football season right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show on a Monday.
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit tonypope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
If you're a listener, I feel strongly that if you're in the upstate and are in need of real estate services, Cindy Searfoss is your go-to person. Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane can help you with any of your realty needs right there in the upstate of South Carolina, Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Oconee, Pickens, wherever you are. Cindy can help you with that. She's married to a diehard Gamecock fan, has been in the upstate for more than 35 years. Right there in my hometown of Spartanburg, Daniel Morgan Avenue. Contact Cindy, 864-414-5271, or email csearfoss, C-S-E-A-R-F-O-S-S, at cbcaine.com, C-B-C-A-I-N-E. That's Cindy Searfoss, a proud sponsor of the Inside the Gamecocks podcast. Check her out. We've already gotten several emails from listeners that are very impressed with her professionalism and her ability to help you with your real estate needs. 864-414-5271, Cindy Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane.
If you're looking to sell or buy multifamily property right here in South Carolina, the Burgesson team of RE/MAX at the Lake can help you get to closing fast and easy. Adam and Derek Burgesson both are very proud Gamecocks and are more than happy to assist you with any of your commercial real estate needs all across the state. You can email Adam at aburgesson@remax.net. That's ABERGESON at remax.net to get your next deal underway. The Burgesson team, proud sponsors of Inside the Gamecocks.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Attention golfers of all ages and skill sets. Former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor will be a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina very, very soon. You want to take advantage of this opportunity. If you're like me and you got to get a whole lot better at golf, or even if you're looking to refine your swing, Meredith is the person you need to go to. She's competing in her final USGA Mid-Amateur Tournament this summer before going full-time into teaching and coaching individuals. If you're in South Carolina, Meredith will be conducting in-person golf lessons at the Country Club of Lexington, half-hour, hour, on course. She'll play 9 or 18 with you. If you're out of state, though, this is really exciting. She'll be conducting virtual lessons. You can send in your swing for her expert analysis. Also, in November, she'll launch an online course with video instruction for all ages and skill levels. Meredith has 20-plus years of knowledge, former SEC golfer, all of that. So contact her on Twitter, at @MERTaylor, at MERTAYLOR, or go to McKellarEnterprises.org. McKellar spelled MCKELLAR, Enterprises.org. Her email's on the website, so you can connect with her for any other questions. Go get your golf game in order. Take advantage of Meredith Taylor and her services. Yep, time to get back to the show. Shoot. All right, my man.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Gamecocks, the show. We are joined on the McKellar Enterprises guest line by David Cloninger. Is it Cloninger or Cloninger? What do you prefer?
Cloninger, hard G.
Hard G.
Oh, man, I've been mispronounced. Oh, God, I feel terrible.
It happens to everybody, all right? First day of school for me growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Always awful.
Cloninger.
I go by my middle name, so everyone always called my first name on attendance roll. So when the C started coming around, I was like, yeah, that's me. Just call me Dave.
Let's just get through this and then move on. Yeah. Well, David, I apologize for not having you on. I mean, like, every week I sat there and thought about how great that first segment was and how funny and entertaining it was. So that's my bad, just forgetting about it week to week, but we're glad you joined us. Man, it's one of the best articles I think I've ever read by someone covering the Gamecocks, as far as a deep dive into history and, talking about something significant and tying it to, I guess, the G.G. Jackson thing now, the Mike Grosso story. I'm old enough to remember my dad and mom talking about Carolina leaving the ACC, and that there are a lot of political things involved. And I knew the story, but that article that was, by the way, you guys can read it on the Charleston Post and Courier, was outstanding. And that was really laid the groundwork, I think, for where we're at now with the Gamecocks leaving the Atlantic Coast Conference in the early 70s and going through the wilderness for 20 years. And now they're in the SEC. But kind of walk us through that story and sort of, just tell the story about what happened and all that for those that may not know.
Yeah, and I appreciate the compliment, JC. I've been working on it for about a month and a half. I thank my editor, Jeff Hartzell, so much because we were originally planning to run it in September. And I was like, man, this is going to be a pretty lengthy story. You think we should split it up? And he's like, honestly, man, why don't we do it, in October at the bye week? We'll have more room in the paper. And I thought, that's brilliant because that's when basketball practice starts. So thank him for making that decision. It really turned it out well and gave me more time to work on it. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, Mike Grosso was one of the best basketball recruits in the country in the class of 1965. Exact recruiting rankings aren't really, known from back then. They had the parade All-American team or what have you, but they didn't have a ranking service. But most people confirmed that there was one number one recruit, a guy named Lou Alcindor, who some of you may have heard of, and then there was Mike Grosso. And Mike wanted to come play here. He wanted to play for Frank McGuire, so he did. Of course, back then, freshmen couldn't play varsity ball, so he wasn't going to play in the 1965-66 season anyway. Well, he was coming in. South Carolina was in the ACC in its first couple of years under Frank McGuire. McGuire had obviously been in the ACC before at North Carolina, won a national championship in 1957. There was a lot of bad blood between Frank and the rest of the ACC for how he won. He was kicked out at North Carolina for some recruiting violations. A lot of other folks didn't like that. And then when he came back, they probably thought he's going to do this again and might upset our apple cart. So back then there was a rule that the ACC passed before Mike Grosso ever got in school that said any student athlete to get an athletic scholarship has to score an 800 on their SAT. You got to get an 800 to get a scholarship. If you don't get an 800, you can't get a scholarship, but you can still play football or basketball. Mike Grosso didn't get an 800, so, okay, no big deal. He paid his own way to school, and he was here as a freshman, couldn't play varsity anyway, no big deal. But then the ACC in the middle of that freshman year said, we're going to change that rule. Now, if you are in school and you haven't got an 800 on your SAT, you can't get a scholarship and you can't play. In the middle of the freshman year. So naturally, McGuire and Grosso are like, what? You can't just change stuff midstream. And they said, well, actually, we can. We're the ACC. They appealed. Of course, they weren't going to win. As another story has told it, Sports Illustrated back in the 60s wrote it, Frank McGuire had to be physically restrained from going after the guys that did it. And pretty much it was Mike Grosso was not allowed to play here. Now, what's weird about it, JC, is that, as I mentioned in the story, they were playing scrimmages before that 66-67 season ever started. Mike tore his knee up. He got undercut by a kid when they were playing Guilford College at the Old Carolina Fieldhouse, and he was done for the year. He wouldn't have been able to play anyway. The ACC knew that when they took up the appeal. And yet they still didn't give him any grandfathering, didn't give him any, okay, we'll look at it next year when you're better. They just said, nope, you're done. Bye. So he had to leave. And he went to Louisville and recovered and averaged a double-double for the rest of his 2 years, briefly played in the pros, but he never got to play at South Carolina. And that right there was the impetus, the first spark on the bonfire that said USC has got to leave the ACC if they're going to not treat them fairly. As you guys know, it took another 5 years. They won the ACC basketball tournament in 1971, and soon after that, they said, we're leaving. And what was the reason given? We need to have better academic restrictions. We want to be, coincidentally, like the Southeastern Conference that has an admission score of 50 points lower on your SAT. But it was too late to help Mike Grosso. And how I got turned on to it, you've been around for a long time, and like you, JC, I'd heard the stories, and I was like, everything I did research, I was like, has anybody ever actually talked to this guy? And I couldn't find it. And I said, well, yeah, I'll take a shot in the dark. I mean, you can talk to his teammates, but it's going to be a better story if you get him. So I tracked him down, called him, and it took some doing. He's like, man, a long time ago, and he was going through some medical stuff at the time. He lost his wife, unfortunately, 3 years ago. But we kept talking. He was like, yeah, okay, let's talk. And I just said, unfiltered, man, tell me what you think. And obviously I had to filter a little bit of it for the paper because there are some very bitter feelings left over from that. But as Mike said, had it not happened the way it did, I never would have met my wife, and I never would have had the wonderful years I had with her. So he said, worked out for the best. But as for his teammates, they're like, you have no idea how good this guy was. And if they'd have let him play, perhaps things are different. I mean, nothing against being in the SEC, but perhaps South Carolina remains the power that it was in the ACC, and maybe things are different now.
Absolutely. Of course, Gamecocks left the ACC, I believe, in 1971. That was their last basketball season. Won the football championship in 69, too. So they kind of went out with a blaze of glory there with some titles. Unfortunately, what happened to one of those really good teams, the 69-70 team, there wasn't something called a shot clock in college basketball back then. John Roach, who was a very good player for the Gamecocks, and also you had to win the ACC tournament to get in the NCAAs. So it's all set up for Carolina. It's probably going to be South Carolina, UCLA in the finals, to be honest. They were getting to host the NCAA regionals at Carolina Coliseum. They had won the regular season. They went 14-0 during the regular season, but Roach got hurt in Greensboro, and NC State held the ball and won 42-39. And that team did not go anywhere because they couldn't go to the NIT then either, because there was a rule if you hosted an NCAA thing, you couldn't go to the NIT, blah, blah, blah. So that was a heartbreaking year. The next year, the Gamecocks, I think, won the ACC tournament and did go. But that was kind of the beginning of the end, obviously. And a lot of people really did not like McGuire. Eddie Cameron, who the court is named for at Duke, was especially not a fan of Frank McGuire going back to the North Carolina days, right?
Absolutely. Those guys just did not like how Frank operated. And, finding out later, JC, and it's one of those where I kind of know it, but I didn't want to write it because I can't really prove it. I think a lot of their argument was when McGuire came back in and Mike Grosso paid his own way through school, his uncles that owned a bar in New Jersey paid the tuition. It was $300 back then.
Wow.
And I think the ACC at least suspected, well, where'd they get that money? They were thinking because Frank had done it before at North Carolina. But as one of Grosso's teammates, Jack Thompson, told me, he said, look, I don't know how the guy was in school. But if that happened, that's on Frank. That's not on Mike. And you're hurting an innocent 19-year-old kid who had nothing to do with all this, but all of a sudden he's in the crosshairs of this investigation. So it's one of those things that I have a lot of things that can define Carolina athletics or Carolina basketball, but that's it's like, of course, you get one of the best program-changing recruits, and the ACC knows it's coming and says, nope, can't have it. And then that's it. And this is after they won the ACC football title in 1965, and that got stripped too for using supposedly ineligible players. So, it all goes back to why, I was born in 1978. I'm older than a lot of the reporters on the beat, but I was never around for those days. I've just heard the stories like everybody else. But I still remember when South Carolina played Duke in the round of 32 and 17, and there was just so much Duke hate. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's Duke, and you hate Duke, right? I mean, they're like the New York Yankees, right? But it was like, you don't even understand, man, about how much that animosity toward the ACC goes back, and says you have no idea how contentious it was. And apparently a lot of fans hit me up for this story and said, keep going, with the story, because when USC originally wanted to leave the ACC, apparently Clemson said, yeah, we're leaving too. We're going with you. And then they backed out. Yeah,
that happened. Or that's on the record, because I'm going to date myself here. I used to, when I was, I guess 10 or so, I really started getting into sports, and I'd go and I'd use the microfilm at the Spartanburg County Public Library and go back in time. And there was an article about Clemson and USC both expected to leave the ACC. And I'm like, what? Well, this obviously didn't happen. And, there's a lot of stuff there. But, yeah, man, you start digging into that. I'll be curious to see on the other side of things who will comment on that. On the Clemson end of things.
That's the thing too, JC. I mean, I'd love to have this story like 20 years ago, because, Mike Grosso is the only one of the principals that's still with us.
Yeah.
Eddie Cameron died in 1988. Coach McGuire in 94. Everybody else who was on that executive committee, the UNC AD who did not like Frank, I mean, all those guys are long past.
Yeah.
So, I'd love to be like, it's been so long, let's talk about it now. But They never commented back then. Their only response was like, he's ineligible. That's it. Bye. And it left it up to Frank McGuire to, sound off on it to the press. And, of course, that got USC in even deeper hot water with the ACC, where the school president actually had to go to the ACC and said, I have to apologize for my basketball coach. But on that same line, you guys are kind of acting unfair, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. I remember reading about that. It was just unfairness. And then look, the ACC has evolved into like what its name is. The whole Atlantic Coast Conference really goes from Miami to Boston now, and it's they're kind of feeling their way. But honestly, I remember when Maryland left the league for the Big Ten. You remember the tweet from the Maryland Athletic Department account? No more North Carolina bias. They called it Carolina, but we call it North Carolina here. No more North Carolina bias. No more. And so there's been that stigma in that league for a long time that, those Tobacco Road schools kind of run it. I think it's to their detriment now across the board.
When you stretch from Boston to Miami, as you pointed out, JC, you can't have just your big four schools in North Carolina all within a 90-mile radius of each other making the decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe they're kind of getting out of that because now ACC headquarters is moving from Greensboro to Charlotte, more of a hub. But still, it's always going to be that it's Atlantic Coast, but it's still that southernmost part.
Yeah.
Who runs everything. And you can lump Clemson in there with them now because it's like, well, you guys are the top dog in football, and football's the top sport. So, pretty much what they want is gonna be passed.
Talking to David Cloninger, Charleston Post Courier. Okay, we're just finished the open date, and Gamecocks have 6 games on the football field left to play. Kentucky win was as big as it gets. Texas A&M, another program that's had the Gamecocks number to say the least, coming in this weekend. Kind of your thoughts on the first 6 games of the football season.
Well, JC, you come into an off week with a win, and it's a win against a school you haven't beat lately who was ranked, and it was your first SEC road win. Everybody's feeling real good right now. Everybody's confident. They got a few days off to rest, which they really needed because this is a beat-up football team. With the first 6 games, it's been kind of a case of like, well, they felt their way out. Now they seem to have gotten to a formula which they like, which they can win. I'm like, I get that. You're not wrong. But one, you really don't want to say that about a second-year program. That's something you say about a first-year program, Mm-hmm. And two, I realize that defensively, while they've had to do that because they've just had so many injuries to key guys, and now it's like, hey, don't worry so much about the system. You got to go do what you can just to get some production here. Nothing can help that. Of course, it's always going to come back to offense. Now, past 3 games have been great. It's worked. It's looked good a lot of times. And I will say, for the record, against Kentucky, I had no problems with the play calling except for one play. Marshawn Lloyd on 4th and 1 with no extra blockers. That was foolish. But the rest, I was like, play calling's been fine. I don't know if it's a play call when Juju McDowell is standing over there doing jumping jacks in the flat and your quarterback bounce passes the ball to him. That's not the play call.
Keith mentioned that last week. He said unbelievable.
And also, people are like, oh, this offensive line's bad. I'm like, no, they gave Rattler enough time to throw it down on the goal line. And if you watch the play, Austin Stogner is wide open in the middle. Wide open. That's the play. That was perfectly called. Got to let the ball go. You can't just stand there with the ball while the guy's coming in at you. You're like, uh-oh. So, it's always going to come back to that because throughout 6 games, JC, and you guys know this too, there's been times this offense has looked good and it's looked capable and it's gotten the job done. And that's the bottom line. Long as you win, that's the bottom line. There's also times where it's just like, it's disjointed. There's no rhythm. It's kind of like you see the visible light bulb go on the sideline. Oh, got it. It's time for the Jaheim Bell package. Go ahead and get him in there. I'm like, to me, that guy should be on the field every snap. But
I think everybody agrees with you there.
But the thing is, guys, it's like it is working. It's won the past 3 games. It's looked good. So at this point, they're kind of like, all right, well, there's not going to be any decisions made. I think you guys know that.
Yeah. There may have been something that may have come up had they laid a big egg at Kentucky.
Right.
But I thought the play call in the second half at Kentucky was actually made a difference. I thought there were some really good play calls.
They gave Rattler, more that he was comfortable with. And also it was, as I wrote in today's paper, Marshawn Lloyd, it's like, give him the ball. Just give him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was very pleased to see, turnover on the first play of the game. Great. You got the ball on the 2-yard line. Don't get cute here.
Yeah, just run it.
Lined up Max Protect, said just give it to old Stud Hoss in the backfield there. Bam. Touchdown. Easy. I'm like, see, there you go. Real simple. That was a difficult game.
Blocking, tackling, that tends to do it in terms of that. I thought the perimeter blocking too came out both on the reverse and the little play to Juice Wells where he broke it. In the Georgia State game, people asked what the problem was in that one. Well, Carolina kept trying to attack the perimeter, but you had guys out there just like whiffing, and it's a numbers game, right? And
that was one thing too on that Juice Wells. Josh Vann might have got away with one there, but they didn't call it.
Yeah.
They didn't call it. So, I was like, okay.
Very interesting. Yeah. I think it's important for Rattler to settle down quicker. Second half. And also you talked about the light bulb and all that good stuff, and you can see it. And I was actually in Lexington. That's the first game I've seen in person this year. It's noticeable. In the first half, it was just so methodical and slow operationally. Mm-hmm. But the second half, Carolina lined up. They didn't go like Tennessee fast, right? But they went faster. And I think that helps him because he does less thinking and more playing.
It is one thing, JC, he's been on record and it shows that he likes to run that up tempo, call a play, get to the ball, snap it. So it's like you see him start doing that. But then after a few 2-3 plays, it's okay, call a play, look over the sideline, call a play, then go. I'm like, come on. Get back to what we're doing. That's what's keeping them off balance. So I've kind of run out of words to say, just how strange it is. But it's like, look, it won the game, and winning cures everything. We saw that last year. So it's just a case of, I realize A&M is favored this weekend. That's fine, because this is still a game that South Carolina can win, and I think there's an easy path towards them winning. There's nothing about A&M that really frightens USC from what it's done to this point. They stopped a nemesis in Chris Rodriguez last week, or against Kentucky. Devin Achane is another nemesis. He's lit up South Carolina the first 2 times he's played them. To me, watching A&M from afar, I'm like, that's the only offense they got. You stop that guy, you're going to be fine. But you got to go stop him. And against Chris Rodriguez, he had, 126 yards? Didn't score.
Yeah, and 90 of those came in the first half.
Yeah, so it's just stay in front of him. When you get to him, just lock him up till somebody can help you. And, hey, he can run as long as he wants to, as far as he wants to, in between the goal line. That's cool. We'll worry about how it looks afterwards. Just don't
let him score.
Don't let him in.
Yards and 8 points.
And A&M has looked relatively pedestrian on offense most of the year, and they have, Alabama. They stayed in that game because Alabama turned it over 4 times, and Alabama, there's something askew in Tuscaloosa right now, in my opinion. But
I was watching that one too, JC. And when it's a tie game and you've got the ball and you've got 2 timeouts and your kicking game is not good, I'm like, hey man, just run the clock down and kick, and if you miss it, you go to overtime. That didn't happen.
No.
3 straight pass plays.
We're going to throw it 3 times. Yeah.
3 straight pass plays, and then you miss the field goal. Now you've given them great field possession with 18 seconds. I thought, Nick, come on, buddy.
That was a very un-Saban game plan. From the start, they came out and started chunking it. I was like, I thought for sure they'd say, all right, we got to keep I've preached it all year. You want to stay in the game. I said it last year about South Carolina. You want to stay in a game with a team like Tennessee, you got to weather their storm, and you got to do it with your offense.
You got to keep them off the field, which, Tennessee couldn't stop the run. Alabama, the best run offense in the league. Go out and run the ball. They're going to score. That's fine.
Run the dang ball. Yeah.
But I thought, boy, that's as for the interference flag that wiped off a Tennessee interception. I didn't see it, so maybe you guys did. when did he actually throw the flag for the interference? Because if he threw it immediately, I have no beef. I thought it was the right call. I just don't know when he actually threw the flag.
A little late.
They said it because I was like, we're getting into Terry Porter, Ohio State versus Miami here. Like, if you sat there and looked at it for 4 seconds and then threw the flag, I'm like, come on, dude. That's no. But I never saw where the flag came in. So I was like, all I saw was on the field, and I thought, oh, no.
I must have missed that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So, you got to stop A-Chain this weekend. Any other keys to the game before we get you out of here, man?
Oh, man. I mean, just go out there and score. I mean, we're talking about rhythm and flow on offense, how it's better in the second half. That's usually been the case. And it's been good because they've been in such a hole to start most first halves. They didn't have that last week. Mm-hmm. They got an early score on the second play, and then they held Kentucky out of the end zone except for one bust. Okay. But it was 7-7. So, okay, no problem. You just got to go out there and try to, try to get a quick start. It's not going to happen on a turnover all the time, but whatever you want to do, go out there and execute it. And to me, that right now is like you've got a couple of definite things in your wheelhouse, and they all involve Marshall and Lloyd. Give him the ball. Give him the ball and have him pace you, and then let Rattler settle into the game. And that way maybe he won't make some of these early mistakes because – SC State, okay, I'm not going to fault 2 interceptions that should have been caught. Those are not his fault. But some of those plays against Kentucky, I'm thinking,
Yeah, it was noticeable. There was sometimes there was nobody open, but there were other times that he missed it.
Well, I'm writing during the game, especially a late one, JC, and I was writing up ideas for my little opinion piece after the game, and the first thing I wrote at halftime was, there needs to be a question asked, and it's not the one you're thinking about offense. It's going to be, is it time to give Luke Doty a shot? Now, I erased it because second half was fine.
Yeah.
But at that time, if that game had kept going the way it was, I'm like, I think there needs to be a little, decision-making over the next 2 weeks because the kid don't look good.
If that had continued, I agree. I mean, I've been hesitant to call for Doty this year, or because but I do think Luke's improved quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and I also think you and I know JC from talking to who we talked to. It's like, why call for something that is probably not going to happen?
Yeah, I know.
One of those like, yeah, this guy needs to play. He came in all right, fine, but at that point, after 6 games, if they had lost and he had played badly throughout, I said, think you might need to at least take a look at this.
Yeah.
But he played a great second half, nearly flawless. So I was like, okay, no problem.
You guys had like 90 yards at halftime, 266 in the second half. That and if you look at Mississippi State only had 203 the whole game against Kentucky's big blue.
MSU and Kentucky.
That was strange. It always is, though. They play each other every year.
Yeah.
They're permanent opponents, and they always have like some kind of weirdness. Like last year, Kentucky went down there. I think Kentucky may have been undefeated or had 1 loss. Mississippi State beat them pretty good.
Yeah.
Same thing happened this year in Lexington. But that's one of those weird every year games that we're probably not going to see a lot of here in the next couple of years because they're going to redo the schedule and all that good stuff. So there we go. Well, David, I appreciate you joining us today, man. Congrats on that article. I'll tell everybody to read it. And hopefully you continue to dig into that period of Gamecock history because that's a fascinating time period, and it really laid the groundwork for a lot of what we see today.
Yeah, you know what, guys? It's always better than writing about cut blocks and blown layups. So I'll see what I can.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
David Cloninger. Got to have him more often. I'm writing that down on the notepad here. Really good stuff there. VJ Belmont does chime in on the chat box. He's called Doty mid-season at 4-2 is like calling for a new OC. Yeah, and I just want to clear up what he said. He was going to mention it had Carolina continued to. And look, I'll be honest. Wasn't a fan of the operational aspects of the offense the first half the other night at all, and I think that had something to do with Rattler struggling. But the bottom line is Spencer Rattler did struggle, and all that good stuff. So that's. But he came back in the second half, so he's got to put a full half of football together. I think this offense in general needs to do that. Sometimes that ends up happening. So we'll see. And just like Jamie Bradford said last week, the system sort of is what it is. Nothing you can do about it for the rest of the year. I've got questions about it, obviously. But Carolina can go win football games moving forward with this offense, with the players they have. They just have to go execute and get enough and continue to play well on defense and special teams. Corey, they have not announced the Missouri game time yet, but Phil is all over it and I'm all over it. And we'll let you know right here on the show. It should be while we're broadcasting. So Missouri game time, that game obviously next weekend at Williams-Brice, and a chance to get that daggum trophy back. And there's a trophy for this weekend's game too. We just nobody's ever seen it in Columbia because
that's right.
You need somebody to call Jimbo. Hey, y'all be sure to dust that thing off and bring it with you. Because, this may be the year. And I've said that to my credit all year. I was like, if you're going to get A&M, get them this year. All right, we got to get a break. Keith's coming in with his normal Monday heat. We look forward to that. Also, if you missed Keith's heat last week, if you took last week off like the team did, you can go check out a lot of his highlights from his interview on our YouTube page. It's under the Gamecock Media tab on our YouTube page where we stream. All right. We'll be back after these messages inside the Gamecocks, the show. If you're a listener, I feel strongly that if you're in the upstate and are in need of real estate services, Cindy Searfoss is your go-to person. Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane can help you with any of your realty needs right there in the upstate of South Carolina, Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Oconee, Pickens, wherever you are. Cindy can help you with that. She's married to a diehard Gamecock fan, has been in the upstate for more than 35 years. Right there in my hometown of Spartanburg, Daniel Morgan Avenue. Contact Cindy, 864-414-5271, or email csearfoss, CSEARFOSS, at cbcaine.com, CBCAINE. That's Cindy Searfoss, a proud sponsor of the Inside the Gamecocks podcast. Check her out. We've already gotten several emails from listeners that are very impressed with her professionalism and her ability to help you with your real estate needs. 864-414-5271, Cindy Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane.
If you're looking to sell or buy multifamily property right here in South Carolina, the Burgesson team of RE/MAX at the Lake can help you get to closing fast and easy. Adam and Derek Burgesson both are very proud Gamecocks and are more than happy to assist you with any of your commercial real estate needs all across the state. You can email Adam at aburgesson@remax.net. That's ABERGESON at remax.net to get your next deal underway. The Burgesson team, proud sponsors of Inside the Gamecocks.
Hey man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
Oh, I feel that, man. My head hurts, but I have a good lead on a good idea. I'm calling your boy Matthew Odom today from Heritage Digital. Heritage Digital is an IT firm that specializes in making sure your IT network runs like a dream. If you have 1 or 500 employees, it doesn't matter. They do it all for one monthly fee and have clients from South Carolina all the way to California.
Yeah, I heard that monthly fee's low too, so I don't know why I didn't even think of that. Do you have 843-699-1001 as Matt's contact number?
Yeah, man, I sure do that. Or you can go to heritagedigital.com.
Man, I hear they do a no-cost assessment. Boy, this will help me.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm getting on that and encouraging everyone else to do the same. Heritage Digital, 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com, a proud sponsor of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hey folks, JC here. I've told you about Nana's Porch over and over again. They sponsor our chat box on the show. Don't take my word for it, though. I wanted you to hear from Gamecock pitcher Noah Hall about our sponsor, Nana's Porch, nanasporch.com. Go there, food truck, catering, whatever you need. Take it away, Noah.
What's up, Gamecock fans? This is pitcher Noah Hall. If you want some delicious food for your event, I suggest visiting nanasporch.com today to find out what they all have to offer. It's really good Southern cuisine based out of Charlotte, my hometown. I hope you guys go check it out. Go Cox and go Nanas.
What's up? This is Jaheim Bell with the Gamecocks, and you're now listening to Inside the Gamecock Show with JC and Phil.
Welcome back to Inside the Gamecocks, the show, everybody. Second hour brought to you by the Burgesson team at Remax by the Lake. Give Adam or Derek Burgesson a call or shoot him an email at aburgesson, that's Bergeson, for all of your commercial real estate needs. And, of course, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Use the code BIGSPUR at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. And Keith now joins us on the McKellar Enterprises guest line. So, Keith, you enjoy your football watching this weekend?
Yes, there was no stress. I didn't feel like I was passing a kidney stone or going into child labor or having thoughts of slicing my wrist wide open. So it was wonderful.
Wonderful college football weekend. Lots of classics right down to the wire. The more I think about that Bama-Tennessee game, the more I just, it's rare that we get to question Nick Saban on something, but I don't know why they didn't run the ball more in a lot of different situations.
I don't think it's because they can't run the ball. I think they can't run the ball. And we've never seen this from Alabama. I thought there was the huge drop by Jahmyr Gibbs down there in the red zone. I mean, it was just a wild, wacky game. I didn't think Bryce Young was going to play. I picked Tennessee to win the game, but I was really pulling for Alabama. One of my best friend's sons is on staff at Alabama, Brad Lawing's son, Will. He is OB's analyst. He was the tight ends coach for him with the Houston Texans. And I just grew up loving Alabama football because my dad loved Alabama football. And I got to see Bear Bryant live and in person, even though the first time I went to that stadium, JC, was in 1979 at Legion Field in Birmingham for the Hall of Fame Bowl, which was played in a cold, pouring down rain where Gary Harper lost his voice after the first drive, and Missouri beat the Gamecocks.
That was the first game I ever went to live.
Yeah.
I was 3 years old. I hid under my mom's poncho and peeked out. But and my uncle drove us down there, and he's one of these that never likes to stop. And so I was starving, apparently. I guess we had stayed in Atlanta and driving over. And, my mom always tells that story. But, yeah, it's the first Gamecock game I ever went to in person. Second one was Notre Dame in 83.
In the rain. Also in the rain.
In the rain.
Down rain.
It did not go again until 87 at Miami. So that was and by 87, I knew what was going on. I don't think I knew what was going on in 79 or 83, but certainly.
Yeah, I was already out of college by then. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, you don't look it, man. You don't look it. Anyway, Gamecock 864 on the Nana Sports chat box says Tennessee rant. Keith hates Tennessee. And then that's the thing. Zach, and this is a good point with Zach. We'll get your take on this, Keith, then we'll get to the Gamecocks. Pull this up from Zach here, Phil. Mm-hmm. Man, I'll tell you what, I can't stand Tennessee, but I tip my hat to them. Alabama does not have the big physical guys on defense like they always have. This was a change they implemented a few years back, Alabama. They started going because they struggled with tempo offenses. And obviously in certain games, they still do, obviously. And so they started recruiting smaller linebackers, guys that could run a little bit better and not your big basically gigantic defensive end types that they used to have. So that's a change. I don't know if that helped them or hurt them on Saturday, but that is something that Alabama has evolved with.
Now, I mean, Nick Saban has evolved defensively and offensively. Great coaches do evolve. Other coaches, like Will Muschamp as a head coach, they just always, when they want to change, but when things don't go the way they want, excuse me, they revert back. And that's why I think Nick Saban has ultimately been so successful at Alabama. He's the best recruiter in the country. But I don't think, JC, to me, the biggest difference in Alabama from the past few years to this year is that they do not have the same kind of dudes at wide receiver. Maybe they got one or two, but they've been used to having 4, 5, 6 guys. They got guys dropping balls that are wide open. They don't even look like they know how to catch the football. And, defensively, I just think that's college football now. Everybody's taking a step back, except for Kentucky, who shut down the pirate ship. I mean, they totally cannonballed that thing up there. They need a blue field in Kentucky. If they're big blue nation, they should play on a blue field. But I digress. I mean, you got to tip your cap to big fat former quarterback Josh Heupel. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of fat ex-quarterbacks, and he looks like probably a right guard now would be his position. But when you look at their offense and you look at some other offenses, I mean, he is the real deal. His offense, it's not a gimmick. I was skeptical. I thought they might take a step back this year, but really the biggest difference is they had Jalen Hyatt and Alabama didn't. And, thanks BMAC. I mean, that's another guy that, well, never mind.
Speed. Jalen Hyatt, speed kills, man. Speed kills.
Evidently, Brian McClendon, about every guy he signed was 6'2", 6'3", 190, and slower than
Alpoop. So, anyway, but that's something else right there. It's going to be interesting to see how the season plays out and all that good stuff, but certainly a big win for the Vols this weekend. A lot of other good games. I mean, Southern Cal, Utah was great. How about LSU going down to Florida and winning?
They scored 28 straight and were really boat racing the Gators going in the fourth quarter, and they went to a prevent defense because it was 21-14 Florida, and then it was 42-21 Florida going into the fourth quarter. And I think they relaxed. Florida got back in it, but when it came down to it, LSU, they just controlled the football. They ran the ball. They controlled the clock and got out of there with a 10-point win, even though they were up by 21. JC, for me, I think the biggest thing was I thought it was an awful week for the Zebras.
Mm-hmm. It was.
I mean, look, I'm a high school official in Texas. We are the same as NCAA officials. We play by the same rules. There are some UIL exceptions. We have 7-man crews. They have 8-man crews. In college, they have an extra guy called the center judge. That's the guy that always runs in between the center and the nose guard and makes sure both teams have a chance to sub and then backpedals back. And so you have two officials behind the quarterback, 12 to 15 yards back on either side. That's the only difference. And it is unfathomable for me to comprehend how guys that are the best of the best don't know what down it is. Okay, you have your down indicator, which I meant to wear mine and I didn't. But the H, which is my position, that's the guy that's in charge of making sure the dude with the down marker has got it on the right down. And the guy directly across is looking at it. That's the L, the line judge. And if it's not right, he does like that over his head, or he just keys up his mic and says, hey, we're playing 3 here. It's 3rd down, not 2nd down. Or, hey, it's 4th down. But the H is responsible for that. And I don't understand how you got 8 guys that are getting $4 or $5 grand to call this game. And nobody knows what down it is. You have to stop the game and allow the video to go through every down and every penalty to finally discover it's 4th down.
It's embarrassing.
I mean, that crew should be heavily fined and have to sit out for that. That is inexcusable to not know what down it is. Ole Miss and Auburn, clearly Auburn was getting boat raced, but it was 3rd down and Ole Miss threw a pass and there was no contact.
None. I saw that.
If guy throws on that, I mean, that was just, well, I'm a homer and we're at Ole Miss and I'm throwing on that. That was awful. I mean, there were just several more instances of just embarrassing.
I've got one.
Officiating.
Iowa State was terrible. Iowa State kid goes quarterback, keeper. Clearly, if I've seen targeting at all this year, it was on that play. And I'm not a big targeting fan, and I think sometimes it's a little iffy.
But I think that was the one where the guy's face mask went over his helmet. That is not targeting. They've redefined it. Okay, in the rule, there's a 6-inch diameter around the crown of the helmet. That is the area you have to either have a defenseless player who is being hit high while he's defenseless with a launch and the crown of the helmet in or about the head or neck area. I understand why they didn't call targeting on that. And I thought at the end of the game when the guy got hit, right as the knee was going down, the ball started to come out. He did not have, full control of the football. And so I thought that was a legitimate call. But I thought there were several calls where guys lower their heads at the same time. And that's one of the new things. And they just skip over it.
It was during the replay of that fumble, though, Keith, it was interesting because the ref, again, said the ruling on the field is the runner's down by contact. But he had just called a fumble. And so TV had the graphic. The announcers were saying fumble. The graphic said ruling is down by contact. It just didn't look like anybody knew what the hell was going on. And then they did that. I don't know. The targeting, but I didn't know there was a new rule with that. And that's probably actually a pretty good rule. So that's the good end. Clint said there was a hit on Bryce Young that was targeting.
I agree. There were several very questionable calls in that game. Of course, Alabama had 17 penalties in that game, but there were several DPIs that I thought if you're going to call, it's probably defensive holding. It's not a DPI, which is 10 yards and automatic first down. But I thought the one at the end of the game, which would have probably sealed it for Alabama, where they intercepted on the overthrow in the end zone, I really did not think that rose to a DPI, not in the spirit of the rule, because the receiver honestly had no chance of catching it, and both players were contacting each other. There was a lot of hand fighting going on. That's a judgment call. I mean, not as bad as the roughing the passer Grady Jarrett on Tom Brady last week, where they said, well, he unnecessarily threw him to the ground. Well, how do you get a guy on the ground if you don't throw him on the ground.
You could hurt your back trying to not throw him on the ground. I mean, you could really. I mean, anyway, yeah, that was ridiculous. That was crazy. All right, Keith. South Carolina's Texas A&M. South Carolina's playing Texas A&M Saturday. Obviously, the Aggies have dominated the series. Some close games in there mixed, but the last 3 years, 30-6, 48-3, 44-14. Gamecocks have not been competitive against these guys. A&M's a 4.5-point favorite. I think the matchups are pretty good for South Carolina. I don't think you look at it and go, this is going to be difficult, or this is something to where, it's going to take this, and this for this team to go in there and compete Saturday night. I'll caution everybody and say A&M still got a lot of great players, a lot of good talent. So I don't think Carolina's going to roll, but I think this falls into the category of winnable game for the Gamecocks.
JC, I agree. I think this is the best chance South Carolina's had since probably 2017 at College Station. The Gamecocks led that game 17-7 late in the third quarter. A&M kicked a field goal. Then there was this little slippery freshman quarterback. It's ironic the Gamecocks may get another freshman quarterback this weekend. It's a dual threat guy who just, escaped and made plays with his legs. And Kurt Roper decided to go ultra conservative and run it up the middle on first and second down, and then it'd be 3rd and 13. And Jake Bentley, I mean, if that had been outside the stadium on the street, some guys would have been arrested for assault and battery with intent to kill. So it's a great opportunity for South Carolina. Marcus Satterfield, bless his heart, when he's had extra time to prepare, the Gamecocks are undefeated. Whether it's a bye week or a bowl game or South Carolina State moved up to Thursday. They got the extra 48 hours. But, I mean, quite frankly, that was more about Will Levis being out and South Carolina dominating both lines of scrimmage. What have they done during the open date? And how do you get Spencer Rattler off early? I mean, I know South Carolina, they want to win the fourth quarter, but you need to win the first quarter. And when you get the ball after a block punt at the 11-yard line, you need points this week. If something like that happens, you can't squander red zone opportunities. And, JC, I just think it comes down to we're all hoping that Marcus Satterfield can figure out how to get Spencer Rattler going early so that he's rolling for 4 quarters and you get a big-time game out of him.
What would you do if you're – just put on your offensive coordinator hat. Tell us what your idea would be. Everybody kind of plan,
I would go hurry up, no huddle. I would incorporate the RPO game, and I would have Jaheim Bell in the slot or out wide, one of the two. And I would try to get out on the perimeter, get some plays, hit some runs, get some RPOs, throw some slants, which I don't think we've hardly seen at all this year, and try to get the ball to the backs and some swing passes and screen game from your wide receivers and hurry it up, get going and get off early. To me, that's what Oklahoma did in 2020 when Spencer Rattler, was one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and going into last season, that's why he was a preseason Heisman frontrunner.
Yeah, getting off to a good start. You mentioned Jaheim Bell. I think there's been several times during his career, Keith, the bowl game, and even that long pass he caught against Georgia, that didn't turn into anything. But Jaheim's kind of a fast starter if you think about it. He can go out there and do some things early on.
JC, here's the travesty of it all. Jalen Hyatt had 5 touchdown receptions against Alabama in one game. Not Alabama A&M, Alabama A&T, Troy, Alabama Birmingham, Alabama. And Jaheim Bell doesn't have 5 touchdown receptions in his career. And he has 0 this season.
I think
somebody knows how to get the ball to their best player and somebody don't. And I'm not trying to be negative because, hell, Jaheim Bell might have 6 receptions for 190 yards and then not get another one for 3 weeks. I mean, who knows? We've seen it happen before. I'm just saying. I mean, okay, Mazio Bennett, heavy Gamecock lean, was almost ready to commit this summer, wanted to see the offense in year 2 to see if it lived up to the hype. Well, I mean, JC, if you watch us play and you watch Tennessee play and you're a wide receiver, I mean, my son's going to Tennessee. I mean, not in reality because Tennessee and Clemson would be off limits, but I mean, you just have to tip your cap. I mean, that dude runs a big time college offense because it's college football. It's not NFL football. It's college football.
I agree with you. We're talking to Keith Allsep a lot on the Gamecocks podcast. Yeah, A&M's going through some similar struggles. I mean, and Jimbo's offense is pro style, but it also, I don't think he's ever coached in the NFL. So it's a college offense, but just that kind of plotting system. And I thought one of the secrets to the second half success Carolina had in Kentucky, and you got a real good sense of it being there, Keith. The first half, I just sat there and just watched guys get shuffled in and out. And you go look at the other sideline, and there's Kentucky's coaches shuffling guys in and out. I think you do yourself a disservice in college ball when you let the other defensive coaches adjust because that's their game. I mean, the whole big – if you talk to any defensive coach, the reason they struggle with tempo is, you can't sub, you can't put your packages out there, you can't dissect. They're just going too fast for that to happen. Well, when you give them that opportunity, they're going to feast on that most of the time. And I thought in the second half against Kentucky, Carolina almost got Kentucky caught off sides a couple of times by lining up. They weren't going super duper fast. It was just a better operational tempo.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, look, everything comes down to personnel, right? Like the defense is going to try to match. But when you've got Austin Stogner and Jaheim Bell, and you got Marshawn Lloyd and Juju McDowell, you could be 2 back, 2 tight end, or you could be 4 wide or 5 wide or 3 wide, 1 tight end. I mean, you could present a number of mismatches by not subbing with a flexible personnel group and going fast. And that's what I like because that's college football. I mean, I see it a lot on Friday nights. I mean, we had an unbelievable game Friday night that wound up. It was 35-28. The home team scored with 33 seconds to go and was going to kick it and called timeout and then went for 2, and the other team burned their last timeout. Then they came back out, and their coach is a gambler, and he went for 2, and they ran it right up their ass, and the guy was in on my side for the game-winning score.
Jeez. See, that's fun. That's what makes college football.
It was fun. Both teams were going fast. They were going up and down the field. There were a lot of good plays. There were some not so good plays, but I mean, it's big time football. And, if you look at Tennessee, if you look at what Garrett Riley's doing in year 2 at TCU versus what Marcus Satterfield's doing in year 2, you can't tell me TCU doesn't have a better quarterback than South Carolina. TCU, yeah, they got some fast dudes, but I would take South Carolina skill players as a group over TCU's, but it's the style. Okay. Look, even Kevin Johns at Duke. Okay. And this is not David Cutcliffe's Duke. This is after he left and they promoted the other guy and he bottomed out, and they brought in the D coordinator from Texas A&M who had been at Wake Forest and then Notre Dame.
Elko.
He hired Kevin Johns from Memphis, and Kevin Johns has got it going. You look at Lance Leipold at Kansas, they got it going. I mean, yeah, they got beat 52-42, but hell, it wasn't because they got beat because their offense wasn't scoring enough points.
They didn't have a backup quarterback too, because their starter was out against Oklahoma. Yeah. So it's just not the right call. I think pro offenses are very nuanced because you have to be, but that's just one of those things. All right, buddy. We appreciate you joining us today for the Heat.
So I got one note for your listeners. The number one women's college basketball prospect in the country, Juju Watkins from Sierra Canyon High School in Los Angeles, is on campus. And she's probably having a meeting today with ESM and Park Ave Sports, because somebody with her profile who considered skipping college and going overseas and playing professional basketball because she is that good, and she already has an NIL deal with Nike signed last week. Her agent, by the way, is Alex English's daughter, who represents a lot of former Gamecock women basketball players. Jade Lee L.I. English is her name.
Nice.
And it's one of three. We know Stanford's one, and we know South Carolina's one, and the third one is probably Arizona or UCLA. But it's kind of like Alabama football when it comes to Dawn Staley. She's always in on the best players in the country, and probably looking at another top 5 recruiting class next month when all is said and done. Possibly another number 1 recruiting class.
Yeah, I'll ask one follow-up on that. And by the way, Missouri kickoff 4 p.m. SEC Network. It just got announced.
I like it.
One more thing. Any concern with her having an NIL deal with Nike and Carolina being Under Armour? Because that's going to come up.
Well, Dawn Staley has a deal with Nike.
I was not aware of that. Well, that's cool. And the question answered.
And hey, JC, who's to say South Carolina won't have a deal with Nike next year?
You never know.
Mm-mm.
You never know. All right, Keith. Enjoyed it as always. All our listeners here love Mondays. You can look at it. Allsep.
Hey, so let me tell you. So we're finally getting AT&T fiber internet today. It only took 4 months, and me demanding to speak to supervisors 3 separate occasions. And basically, JC, you know how I roll when I get agitated because I'm in sales and customer service, and so we went round and round over what has not been done in 4 months, and guess what? It got done, and the repairs were made to the engineering issue, and so they're coming out in about 30 minutes. So
nice. Fiber optic internet. That's good. That's good. Keith lives outside of Austin, Texas, by the way, though. But it's so there's no reason why this shouldn't have happened. He's absolutely right. It's not like Keith lives in the mountains.
Look, they installed it on our street in May. They went door to door in my neighborhood in June. We signed up immediately because we've been waiting on it for 2 years. And they were supposed to come like the next day, and then I get a voicemail saying there's an engineering issue. Well, then They never called me back, and then they canceled my order. We called like half a dozen times, got nothing. And so finally they start calling, promoting, and I go through the story and tell them. And so they sign us up again, and then I get a call back an hour later saying there's an engineering issue. And I'm like, look, I want to speak to your supervisor. And then I spoke to the technical support resolutions, which is the highest escalation, not to just them, but to the supervisor. And they got it done. So sometimes persistence pays off.
You can overcome an engineering issue with that.
Well, basically, you overcome somebody getting off their lazy ass and actually coming out and
doing it.
That's no doubt. Keith, man, we looking forward to next Monday. Hopefully, we're talking about a win.
5-2. It's Separation Saturday coming up.
Yeah. You get 5-2, Missouri on decks. Chance to get bowl eligible before the end of October. So
that's right.
That's good stuff. Thanks, Keith. Have a good one, man.
You too, guys.
Thank you.
That's Keith Allsep from Inside the Gamecocks podcast, or sorry, from Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. Got a lot in the chat box to get to, and we're going to go to that. We got some mailbag questions too. We'll get to when we get back. Once again, Missouri Carolina kicking off 4 p.m. SEC Network. Sort of a night game. I guess it'll be a little dark by the second half, right?
But late afternoon's nice. It's a good window.
Time to tailgate. Yeah, you get time to tailgate, then you're not home at the crack of dawn at night if you're driving in. We'll be back on the other side. More of your interaction right here on the show on a Monday.
If you're looking to sell or buy multifamily property right here in South Carolina, the Burgesson team of RE/MAX at the Lake can help you get to closing fast and easy. Adam and Derek Burgesson both are very proud Gamecocks and are more than happy to assist you with any of your commercial real estate needs all across the state. You can email Adam at aburgesson@remax.net. That's ABERGESON at remax.net to get your next deal underway. The Burgesson team, proud sponsors of Inside the Gamecocks.
Attention golfers of all ages and skill sets. Former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor will be a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina very, very soon. You want to take advantage of this opportunity. If you're like me and you got to get a whole lot better at golf, or even if you're looking to refine your swing, Meredith is the person you need to go to. She's competing in her final USGA Mid-Amateur Tournament this summer before going full-time into teaching and coaching individuals. If you're in South Carolina, Meredith will be conducting in-person golf lessons at the Country Club of Lexington, half-hour, hour, on course. She'll play 9 or 18 with you. If you're out of state, though, this is really exciting. She'll be conducting virtual lessons. You can send in your swing for her expert analysis. Also, in November, she'll launch an online course with video instruction for all ages and skill levels. Meredith has 20-plus years of knowledge, former SEC golfer, all of that. So contact her on Twitter at MerTaylor, at MERTAYLOR, or go to McKellarEnterprises.org. McKellar spelled MCKELLAR, Enterprises.org. Her email's on the website, so you can connect with her for any other questions. Go get your golf game in order. Take advantage of Meredith Taylor and her services.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hey folks, JC here. I've told you about Nana's Porch over and over again. They sponsor our chat box on the show. Don't take my word for it, though. I wanted you to hear from Gamecock pitcher Noah Hall about our sponsor, Nana's Porch. Nana'sPorch.com. Go there. Food truck, catering, whatever you need. Take it away, Noah.
What's up, Gamecock fans? This is pitcher Noah Hall. If you want some delicious food for your event, I suggest visiting Nana'sPorch.com today to find out what they all have to offer. It's really good Southern cuisine based out of Charlotte, my hometown. I hope you guys go check it out. Go Cox and go Nanas.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
Oh, I feel that, man. My head hurts, but I have a good lead on a good idea. I'm calling your boy Matthew Odom today from Heritage Digital. Heritage Digital is an IT firm that specializes in making sure your IT network runs like a dream. If you have 1 or 500 employees, it doesn't matter. They do it all for one monthly fee and have clients from South Carolina all the way to California.
Yeah, I heard that monthly fee's low too, so I don't know why I didn't even think of that. Do you have 843-699-1001 as Matt's contact number?
Yeah, man, I sure do that. Or you can go to heritagedigital.com.
Man, I hear they do a no-cost assessment. Boy, this will help me.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm getting on that and encouraging everyone else to do the same. Heritage Digital, 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com, a proud sponsor of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
This is Braylon Wimmer, South Carolina Gamecock Baseball, and you are listening to Inside the Gamecocks, the show with JC and Phil. Go Cox!
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Inside the Gamecocks is brought to you by Manscaped. Don't forget, use the code BIGSPUR at manscaped.com for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. And the second hour, of course, is brought to you by the Burgesson team at Remax at the Lake. Give Adam or Derek a call or shoot him an email at aburgesson, that's BERGESON, at remax.net for all of your commercial real estate needs. Tell you what, I'm struggling today, JC. I'm not feeling well.
I hope you feel better, Phil. I really do. I've had some days where I've gotten off of the show and I just get up to put up the podcast version and then go back to sleep. So
it's going to be quick. Yeah, downloading the stuff and getting it up quick.
It's cold here today too. I mean, like wind chill's 20. It was snowing this morning, by the way.
Oh,
an ominous sign. Ominous. That's why I'm all bundled up. I have a Wisconsin sweatshirt on today. I'm like, oh man, go Badgers! Because I have a lot of gear from a lot of different places, but had to wear that today. I Help Consulting mailbag question. There's 2 ways to get in the mailbag. You can go tweet to @theBigSpurPod or inside the Gamecocks @gmail.com. This comes in from Soda City. It says JC caught up with a buddy recently who is a resident in orthopedic surgery. Having had a significant injury, a broken femur myself from a non-contact injury, I asked him if artificial turf was causing increases in lower extremity injuries. He said it was possible, but not likely. He said research is pointing toward weight training programs being the problem when athletes spend too much time getting their PRs on squat, deadlift, power clean. Their muscles over-adapt to ideal positionings and movements, which creates an imbalance in their ability to handle less than ideal positionings of their extremities that can occur in football. He said there's growing consensus among orthopedists that weight programs in football especially have to change. Thought that was interesting. Soda City. I'll say this. Yeah, artificial turf has evolved to the point where with the field turf and stuff, it's not like it used to be where, man, like when Carolina had artificial turf, boy, that was like, that was tough playing on concrete. But the field turf, and I've been to a lot of, with what I used to do covering national recruiting, Phil, I've been to just about every practice field, safe, every kind of field turf, grass, whatever. And Carolina, of course, has field turf and it's indoor, but it's fine. It's soft. I mean, really, it's less hard than grass sometimes. But the weight training thing's interesting, and I felt that I think that it has evolved a bit. And if you notice when Scott Cochran, who went to Georgia to be an on-the-field coach from Bama, Alabama went to Indiana and got their strength staff. And they're kind of a new age sort of deal. Bama still has injuries, but they don't have like the 6 or 7 they normally do. I think that part has improved a little bit. But you're right, and I think as things evolve and these guys get bigger, stronger, faster, all that good stuff, that is something to look at. So Evan has a big one. He says, hey, JC and Phil, put in my first email right after the UK win. Definitely a little lost in the sauce. I'll try to be more concise today. I've come to believe that the reason Satterfield can't run his own offensive effectively is his thinking pattern, not his knowledge. That could be the case. I don't know his brain. All I know is what I see. But Evan goes on to say he gets too much into his own head, especially in high pressure situations. It ends up defeating himself before the ball is even snapped. I came to this idea after some rewatches where it's apparent that when the offense gets going, he can get in the flow. But as soon as he starts thinking the offense hits a ditch, I feel this lack of self-awareness extends to his players, creating a blind spot that leads to frustration. They're thinking too much because their coach is. Using Spurrier as a counterexample, his instincts allowed him to lock in on what he saw, and his ego prevented him from undermining his own judgment. Steve would just sit there on the sidelines cracking up as he ran the same play 5 in a row because he hit it the first 4 times, and it would work. He understood that the players on the field weren't the mental extension of some play-calling evil genius on the other sidelines. He just knew that the defense is just 11 college kids, most of which are trying a little too hard or kind of obsessed with not looking bad on national TV. So he bullied those kids, like a good bully does. He leveraged what those kids were most afraid of and had them doubting themselves before the game was even in doubt. Football is as complicated as you make it. I feel this is a good foundation for understanding what's going on. I hear y'all's thoughts. Well, Evan, that's a good point. We all, our guest included, have sat here and said South Carolina's offense is better when they go a little faster.
Yeah.
And
keep up the tempo.
Yeah, keep up the tempo and get it going. I think that, you can't overthink this game. And I'll say this, as far as the frustrations and things like that go, I don't know of a good play caller in football, any level, that's overly demonstrative. Now, Tommy Reese at Notre Dame, I think, is a pretty good play caller, even though, my God, they lost to Stanford this weekend. And he got fired up and yelled and stuff. Obviously, Ken Dorsey, got fired up in the booth. But if you ever watch those guys when they're actually calling it, when they lock in, there's very little emotion. Now, defense is a different story. Defensive coordinators jump around and holler and do all this stuff. I don't think Sat jumps around and hollers and does any of that, but I do think he gets emotional. And I do think settling in and not thinking as much is probably part of it. And some people are just like that. I mean, Kurt Roper was that way to a certain extent. He would overthink it. And I think there's a fine line between being way too simple and then overthinking this game, especially in college. And you hit the nail on the head with Spurrier. I mean, I don't want to call him a bully, but that's exactly what he did. He's like, oh, shoot, he's not covering. Let's just go. There's a story, a former LSU DB says, and LSU used to not be that good, and Florida's just beating the snot out of him. He said Spurrier sat there and just told Danny Werfel, it's like, throw it to this guy. And he went, the D-back looked at the sidelines because they were near Florida sidelines. And he was like, huh? Sure enough, the kid ran an out pattern and called it. He's like, that's the most embarrassing thing ever. So, Chavis says JC looks like the game will be decided by who scores the most. That's good. He did say laugh out loud, so he wasn't. He knew that.
It's tongue in cheek. Yeah.
Both teams are offensively challenged, and the Texas A&M front looks really good. Need a fast start. If you're Satterfield, how do you attack? And ever thought about bringing in a retired offensive coordinator to show the breakdown on our O as a guest? He could even bring a defensive guest on as well. Might be a fun weekly guest. Yeah, we had GA on. Megas has to be careful though. He's still around town. He's not going to get here and just bash it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe he shouldn't. Maybe there's football reasons why not. But yeah, we always love guests like that. We'll look around and see if there's somebody maybe outside of the market that can sit there and look at it and talk about it. But if I'm Satterfield, I'm starting the first half against A&M like I've started the second half against Kentucky. I'm operating at a faster pace, right? That I'm normally accustomed to, and I'm gonna I'm gonna get Spencer Rattler comfortable, and I'm gonna still try to run the ball with Lloyd. I mean, you don't just abandon the run. Because Kentucky's got a good run defense as well. Obviously, Mississippi State doesn't run it a whole lot, but they didn't go far. I think Mississippi State maybe had 2 rushing yards in that game. 2.
Yeah, it was a paltry number.
So we'll kind of see what happens. But all good points there, Chavis. Thanks for your email there, insidethegamecocks@gmail.com. Going back, Krager says Beamer has to get us with Nike. That's an athletic department deal. Shane, if you look, Virginia Tech was Nike, Georgia was Nike, Oklahoma was Nike. So he's got some experience. I'm sure he knows, but Shane knows everybody. So I'm sure that he'd be fine. I think the key there, if you go Nike or Jordan brand, the key is going to be Dawn Staley and her presence, because girls buy shoes too. Lots of them. And so you need, I think that would be a tremendous marketing agreement for Nike. And as Keith said, they've already got a relationship. So that would be good. And I would want them to get the Jordan brand like Florida and North Carolina and Oklahoma has, because that kind of sets you apart. It sounds crazy to say football players like the Jordan thing on their unit, but they do. So I think it's cool. Daddy O says, it's a crazy world we live in when the backwoods of Orangeburg County has had fiber broadband for 5 years, and some metro areas don't. Cynical Aries says, do you think our recruiting will suffer if Beamer doesn't make a change at OC? He's seen what an exciting offense looks like while at Oklahoma. Heck yeah. I mean, honestly, Georgia in 2017 wasn't. They weren't light up the scoreboard good, but they were pretty good. That was Jim Chaney called that. And that's a quote-unquote pro-style system, but with really good play calling, because I think he's good. Zach says, Aries, I think everyone's hoping for this, but another question would be, if we did make a change to a more college-style offense, would this set our guys back another year due to a major change? On that note, there's enough players going and coming or going after this year that because like some of these offensive linemen, man, you don't want to give them something else, right? Because that's all right. So they actually had Wolford, at the end, but 18, 19, and then 20. But what Bobo did on offense blocking scheme wise was a lot different than what BMAC was trying to do. And then you bring in Atkins and Satterfield, and that's completely different. So the O-line would be the ones that I would be worried about. With the skill guys, a slant pattern is a slant pattern. A post is a post. I mean, that kind of thing. Quarterback, maybe it's something.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that some of these high-flying offenses, the ones you're just drooling over on TV, are actually more simple than what it is we do here.
Yeah.
So
Mimi, Jump Man, that's what it's called, is a brand for kids. Did I say Jump Man? Jump Man. So anyway, Mimi says Mississippi State had 144 yards rushing against A&M. They did run it against them, and they ran it. Who'd they beat? Beat Arkansas pretty badly, and they ran. I think they ran for over 100 against Arkansas too. So, we will see. I think A&M gives up some rushing yards. There's some games they haven't, but then there's some games they have. So I think there'll be ability to do that. Zach said, JC, you just reminded me of that UCF game when Mike Davis ran for a 53-yard touchdown. Tommy Suggs says, why only 3 touches in the first half? And Todd Ellis says, don't overthink this game sometimes. Yeah, that game, that was that 28-25 Great Escape where everybody's mad after that one in 2013. Come to find out, that's the only game UCF lost all year. We all love Art Browse and we love the Art Browse offense here on the show. And that UCF team smacked Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl 52-35. He said Arkansas had 244 rushing yards against A&M. Nobody's really stopped Arkansas from running the dang ball.
No.
And they got up off the mat too and beat BYU 52-35.
Yeah, they did. They
the Rocky Mountains, beautiful Provo, Utah. Yeah. So I don't know why they scheduled it, but hey, all's well that ends. Speaking, Zach mentioned that UCF game. That was the same kind of thing for Gamecock fans. Like, why are we playing a road game at UCF? Why? Who did this?
Yeah.
And you'd think, well, hey, fans get to go to Orlando, and Phil and I are very fond of Orlando, right? Time. But the crazy thing about that year, Carolina went back for the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't even that. So, so we'll see definitely what happens there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the offense. I think best case scenario, maybe there's some lessons learned about operating at a faster pace and things turn around. Rattler has a good second half, gets to 3,000 yards. Gamecocks win a lot of games, that type of thing. I think that would be the best case scenario for this team. App State had 181 rushing. Miami had 175 rushing. So, who knows, Phil? Maybe Marshawn Lloyd can rush for a lot of yards.
I think Marshawn Lloyd might be a pretty good running back to hand the ball to.
Yeah. Joey says, do you think the lack of knee pads or protection is a factor of all the knee injuries throughout college football? I don't know. I have noticed some guys aren't using knee pads, though. I don't know about that.
I don't know. And knee pads are not like a lot of that knee stuff, especially the worst of it's non-contact. I mean, it's just the turf just
pops,
grabs you the wrong way, or you're moving one way and the knee doesn't go that way naturally, and pop.
Craig says, I'll be checking my mailbox today, JC. Thanks again. Krieger, I went to the post office on Friday, and there was a line out the door, and I didn't have 45 minutes to wait, so I'm going today. So check it this week. I'll save you a trip. Daddy O says, if Carolina did in fact partner with Nike, Jumpman will be a requirement, in my opinion. If you're going to do it, just do it right. No pun intended, right? Just do it right. Do it up right. So that's what I would
Staley would definitely be pivotal in any of that switch to Nike. She would have most influence over it outside of the athletic.
The Aggies are again doing their yell practice, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the steps of the South Carolina State House.
So I could say so much about that.
It's hard to talk smack about them, though, because South Carolina's like the only team that hasn't had at least one. I mean, I don't know what they've done. They did lose to Florida because Muschamp beat them. So I'm trying to think of who else has maybe not beaten A&M. I think Tennessee's only played them once, but the teams that have played them multiple times, like South Carolina and the West teams, all those other West teams, I think, have a few wins over Texas A&M. So the teams that play them every year have beaten them regularly, but South Carolina. So you can't say anything, but I'll tell you this: you win this one, next time they come and try to do that, there should be a disruption.
That's right. Yeah.
Somebody should just park a ice cream truck out there and play the Gamecock fight song over the speaker for the ice cream truck over and over.
Over and over. That's a great idea.
You could rotate that with Today by Smashing Pumpkins. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Daddy says, please be a knucklehead and go down there and yell at the yellers. Please don't.
Yeah,
I don't
let them have their yell.
I'm just, my friends from Texas are like, you're either an Aggie or you're not. I don't know, because the orange thing, I think I'm predispositioned to not liking the color orange, right?
Right.
So maybe I'd be like
UT.
Texas Tech fan, TCU.
Yeah,
maybe
there you go.
They've got 5 or 6 fans.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice shade of
purple, though, God.
Yeah, it's nice
Baylor's colors are god awful.
Yeah,
Texas Tech's. I don't know. I always think they're in uniform. Maybe I'd just be in Oklahoma. I could pull for Oklahoma.
There you go.
One of those guys. University of Houston, Rice. Plenty of great seats at Rice Stadium.
Anywhere you want to sit.
Come on, great seats available. We're playing it. It's like that old joke Louis Grizzard said about Tech. He's like, the guy pick up the phone and be like, ticket office. And like, well, what time's kickoff today? Do you have any seats today for today's game? It's like, well, yeah, we have plenty. He's like, oh, well, what time's you kicking off? He's like, well, what time can you be here? I think I got that right. The great Louis Grizzard, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we're going to talk more about this game tomorrow. Are we wide open for now tomorrow, Phil?
Tomorrow.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't think we have.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got anybody tomorrow, so we'll just chop it up.
Wednesday, Tarpley, Jamie Bradford. Thursday will be Chris Phillips. Got some other guests we're trying to line up too. Wanda will be back on Friday and all that good stuff. So Keith chimes back in on the Nana Sports chat box. We'll leave it at this. It's not a college football program. It would be considered a cult. Very weird stuff.
Yes.
Either an Aggie or you're not.
Or you're not.
Yeehaw. Yeehaw. Anyway, we'll have plenty of A&M Carolina talk moving forward. Queasy, we got to get this Hulk, Incredible Hulk reference. After the culture shock game, Texas A&M may not want to make Shane angry. They wouldn't like him when he's angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And I don't know, man. David Banner, he used to be so good, like the Hulk, and that's the Marvel version of it to me with that guy. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not a big Marvel guy, though. So we'll talk more about that later. Thank you all for joining us today. A great Monday show. It should be a great week here as the Gamecocks end up the week playing A&M, the Aggies, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Once again, 4 p.m. kickoff for Missouri in 2 weeks. So the Big 12 portion of the schedule, you avoid the noon kickoff games. For Phil Mullinax, it's JC Sherbert. We'll see you tomorrow on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Have a great